all across the nations, all around the world, women are longing to be free, no longer in the shadows, forced to stay behind, but side by side in true equality. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never, never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. Women can't be silent when all around the world people hurt and hungry children cry. We'll sing out loud for justice and development and hold the rights of other people high. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never, never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace.
Yes, good evening. It is 2 minutes past 5 on your Women Radio, WFM 91.7. Women all over the world are longing to be free, and it is no different because here in Nigeria, looking at the political space, yes, women are longing to be free. We want a place at the table. My name is Esther Alaribi, and you're welcome on this conversation on the Woman Agenda. Today we're discussing why TINUBU'S cabinet must have 35% of women in all positions. Expectations are high, and Nigerian women are waiting for the incoming administration to see how well women will be represented across ministries, departments, and agencies. Nigerian women are optimistic that the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when inaugurated, will put women at the fore of his administration. The current administration had just 7 female ministers. We hope to see an increase from this number. We've seen states who have been able to do this. Look at Kwara State, Rivers, Edo. They've been able to achieve this. What do we expect at the national level? You're welcome on the Woman Agenda on Women Radio 91.7. We are live on Twitter and here on radio. You can be a part of the conversation. Send us your comments, your contributions, 070-317-56537. You can listen live at the website www.wfm917. Today, joining me in the conversation, I am going to be speaking to Brenda Anugwam, lawyer and gender expert, Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, and Charity Anaja, gender and governance expert. Good evening, Brenda. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us this evening. All right, we also have Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst. Good evening, Jide. How are you doing today? Hello, Jide. Can you hear me? All right, we also have Charity Anaja, gender and governance experts. Good evening, Charity. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Charity. I hope your day went well.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, you can send us your comments, your contributions, 070-317-56537. Join the conversation live on Twitter, WFM917, or you can listen live on radio, WFM 91.7. All right, going into the conversation. Yes, Jide Ojo, if you can hear me, do unmute your mic so we can hear from you clearly. Good evening, Jide Ojo, if you can hear me now.
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Jide. Good evening.
It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so going into this conversation first, Brenda, what are your thoughts on the just concluded elections and women participation as candidates?
Thank you so much for organizing this debate, and I hope that our listeners will gain so much from it. The just concluded elections were not, of course, without the usual scandals that we have, and of course, not only was it marked by irregularities, but women participation also fell short of expectation. We expected that in 2023, we should be able to move from the usual 5% that we are left at when it comes to National Assembly elections. But it seems as if it's going to be worse of this time. If I should share some statistics, a total of 18 political parties fielded about 380 female candidates for National Assembly elections, 92% for the Senate, 92 for the Senate, and 288 for the House of Reps. Out of the 92 women contestants for Senate, only 3 won. So far we are holding on to 3 women in the Senate. And of course, when the Senate is fully constituted, they are usually up to 109. Now, that is very poor and discouraging. And this is absolutely not what we expected in 2023. We expected more women. So it's very disappointing, I must say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Brenda. Yes, Jide, what do you think about this? The just concluded election and women participation as candidates.
Thank you. As Brenda said, I think the performance was below par. Below par, not necessarily, not totally unexpected, given the fact that political parties themselves did not push many women forward as candidates. I recall that a party like All Progressive Congress pegged the nomination fee at 100 million for presidential aspirants, and for governorship aspirants 50 million, senatorial aspirants 20 million, House of Reps 10 million, State House of Assembly 5 million. However, I must say that they did mention that for women, only expression of interest should be paid for. Likewise, or similarly, the People's Democratic Party. Unfortunately, when women pay for only things, them, but for men, as nomination fees. So you give with the right hand and take back with the left. And aside from that, violence did not help much in 2023, given the fact that ahead of the election, after the nominations, and we have very low nomination of female candidates, in the lead up to the election, first and foremost, it is the first time we are having 150 days of campaigns. That is very exhausting. Financially, to campaign effectively for 150 days, 5 months, can be financially exhausting. So, not many women can organize flamboyant and robust campaigns that is expected to market them successfully. Then we have the violence. It was so worrisome that National Peace Committee had to get all the candidates, presidential and governorship candidates, to sign on to peace accord on September 29, 2022. And in the week, the Thursday preceding the election, the presidential election, that is February 25th election, as well as the governorship election. Now, these are some of the factors that affected women participation. And I need to put it out there that this has been nagging problems. Recall that last 2 years, 6 gender bills that was pushed forward by the civil society in collaboration with some gender champions in National Assembly were all rejected by the National Assembly. These bills, if they have been passed, could have helped to improve the number of nominees, female nominees. Unfortunately, none of the gender bills passed, and we are, even the National Gender Policy of 2006, which was revised in 2022, is observed in the breach by the powers that be, so much so that Nigerian women have to go to court to ask for the interpretation of Section 42, which talks about non-discrimination clause in the Constitution. They got a favorable decision through Justice Donatus Okorowo of the Federal High Court of Abuja. But the administration of President Buhari did even bother to implement. Rather, the Attorney General went ahead to file appeal. Appealing what? Appealing the injustice, decades of injustice to Nigerian women. The President Muhammadu Buhari, I recall in 2019, at the National Women's Center here in Abuja, did promise Nigerian women 35% in his cabinet when formed. Did he fulfill that? Out of 43 ministers, we only have 6 or 7 female ministers, 4 out of which are junior ministers, Minister of State. So the injustices that Nigerian women have faced did not start with the 2023 election and will not end with 2023 election. But these are some of the factors that have pushed the issue of cost of election, cost of the violence that before the election, the fact that the political parties as gatekeepers did not believe in women as to push them, encourage them to get the ticket of their respective political parties, and then the fact that the presidency is very lackadaisical about women issue, despite the National Gender Policy and other laws that are extant in Nigeria, many of which are observed in breach.
All right. Thank you so much, Jide, for this analysis and observation. All right, let's hear from Charity Anaja, gender and governance experts. Yes, Charity, what do you think about women and the just concluded election?
Well, from my own observation, or from my own perspective of the women participation, I think the drop of women was far from not unexpected. It was actually expected, given the body language of the present administration towards the plight of women. Just as Jide Ojo has said, we could see that about 5 or 6 of our bills were thrown out. The number of female representation in the present cabinet and even in the national and state assemblies is reflective of the fact that women, there's no political will at the party levels and even at the governance level to include women. Now, looking at the present election, the just concluded election, you could see the drop of women at even the National Assembly. Only 3 women were able to win that election. Only 10% of the total number of people that ran for the elections were women. Or just about 1,500 and something out of 15,000 were women. Now we have only 78 women at the national and state assemblies across party lands who have won their elections. So to me, it was actually not expected, but far from desired, given the fact that we have done a lot of advocacy, we have done so much to see that the parties, included women and what have you, but it didn't happen that way. But looking at it positively, I want to speak to the participation of women at the state level. I think there was a commendable increase of women at the state level, because from the past elections, we have 6 women who have emerged deputy governors. As insignificant, or as should we say, is non. We do not look at it critically that they may have some level of influence, but at least the men have now begun to see that women are critical in running their elections. So we have 6 women. Akwa Ibom has 4 women in the state assembly. Ekiti has 6, Kwara has 5, Ondo has 3, Rivers has 6. So this is quite commendable. At least we do not have just 1 or some states where, yes, there are still some states with 0, but then at the state level, which is governance closest to the people, we have women that have emerged. So there's going to be a lot of support from other women, but for the general elections, there has been a great drop of women, and it's really, really far from desired, given what was expected before the elections. And this is owed to party primaries, monetized elections, election violence, and what have you, and even political will. So we are hoping that we'll be able to do better going forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Charity, for your comment there. In case you're just joining us, this is the Woman Agenda on Women Radio 91.7. And this series, we get to talk about the need to include more women in governance. And we're having to call on the president-elect and the incoming administration to ensure that we have more female representation in office. My name is Esther Alaribe, and today my panelists are Brenda Anugom, lawyer and gender expert, Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, and Charity Anaja, gender and governance expert. You can send us your comments, your contributions, 070-317-56537. We're live on Twitter at WFM917, and you can drop your comment in the comment section, and we'll be sure to take your comment if you would like to contribute to the conversation. Now, Brenda, I'm coming back to you with this one. This is 2023, and we're still deliberating on achieving 35% of women in governance. Is this a lack of political will, or we need a new piece of legislation to make this happen? Because we have different piece of legislation. We have different ways that advocacy groups, women groups, civil society organizations have to champion, engage in capacity building, lobbying, and all of that. But it just seems as though it doesn't just seem to work. So what do we tie this to?
Thank you, then, Esther. And yes, and the two options you mentioned, we need both. We need political will, and we also need legislation. And I know everybody will say, well, we have beautiful legislations, but nobody is implementing. But when I'm talking about legislation this time, I'm going back to constitution alteration. And, as Jide had mentioned about the women bills that were all thrown out, I'm going back to one of them, which is Section 26(2)A of the 1999 Constitution as amended. That particular section does not give men and women in Nigeria the same quality of citizenship. If we don't start from there, I don't think we can move anywhere. Because you cannot tell me that it's only a man that can pass citizenship to his wife, but a woman cannot pass citizenship to her spouse if the spouse is a foreigner. Our men leave the shores of Nigeria to go to other countries, marry their women, gain citizenship. But I don't know why they don't want Nigerian women to be in the same position. There's a legal maxim that goes thus: nemo das quod non habet. You cannot give what you don't have. That's what it simply means. So if I cannot pass on citizenship the way a man can, it means either I am not a full citizen, or there are two classes of citizenship. So if there are two classes of citizenship, then if we don't finally get it right by making it one and equal, there is nothing we can do, and we are definitely not going to make any impact in terms of having more women in the political space. Now, that is one. And for legislation, we do remember the call for adding extra seats at the National Assembly, specifically reserved for women. People keep bringing up different arguments, and the one that the people are saying that is very, very cogent is the one that the fact that it will enlarge the National Assembly and then it will go up more money, given that we're already more than 77 trillion naira deep in debt. And this current administration coming in is going to carry that burden. So if they come with that excuse that we can have a seat specifically set aside for women, how about we alter the Constitution and then include in it affirmative action? And I wouldn't want to limit it to 35%. If 35% to be put there, then the language at least has to be before it, so that 50% is also good, 70% is also good. And if the call for bill to add additional seats does not fly, how about we just amending Section 77 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Now, 771 talks about the fact that every federal constituency and every senatorial zone shall return a candidate that shall become, the senator representing that senatorial zone or a member representing that House of Rep, senator districts, the House of Rep districts. So why don't we make that section 77 sub 1, push it down to 2, and then create another sub 1. In that one, we specifically state that for every political party that is fielding a candidate for either senatorial or federal constituency House of Rep, they should have of the candidates female. And what I mean by that is, since there are 3 senatorial districts in a state, at least 1/3 should be female, which means at least one senatorial district should be, represented by a female senator. And the fact that the bill to increase the number of seats and, reserve certain seats for women, people are saying it's going to be too expensive. How about we now have a bill that will require that for every state, we have 3 senatorial zones in every state. Every state, at least 1/3 of the senators representing the state should be female, which means every state there should be 1 female senator. And every state can now deliberate within themselves and choose turn by turn which senatorial zone fields a woman. In that case, every political party will field a woman for that particular senatorial zone. In that way, we're not increasing the number of members of National Assembly, but we're making sure that every state in Nigeria has at least 1 senator.
Okay.
I mean, it's 36, rather than the 3 that we are boasting of now. So if we do that, we're not increasing the number of senators. It's not going to be a bulging National Assembly. It will increase more money because it's still the same number, but in that way, we'll have more women. If we don't take these kind of steps, unfortunately, we are still going to remain in ground zero, the same status. And as Judo just said, it wasn't. We didn't expect anything different because the current administration did almost nothing, including ignoring the court's judgment. So these are, for me, some of the ways that we can ensure that we have more women representation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Brenda, and thank you to everyone who's taking out time to join us this evening. Jude, what do you think about this one?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, so for me, speaking in line with what my sister Brenda has said, I want all of us who could log on to websites to check out Section 78 of Ugandan Constitution. I was privileged to observe election in Uganda in 2016. And much as we despise the fact that the strong man in Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, has been in power for close to 40 years, we did not realize that they have a very pluralized and gender-friendly parliament in Uganda, thanks to their Section 78 of their constitution. So, in line with what Brenda has said, we need constitutional alteration. Today, in my column in The Punch, I actually weigh in on reviewing the constitutional alteration we have had so far. It would have been so heartwarming if we had President Buhari signing an alteration to the constitution that reflects or have quota or affirmative action for Nigerian women. Because come to think of it, Esther, that's the way to go. If there's no affirmative action, we will just be moving in circle. It will be motion without movement. Because patriarchy is a very strong factor in Nigeria. The political leadership are all male-dominated. So how do you intend to muzzle Nigerian women in to elective offices if the leadership of the 18 political parties are not gender-friendly? They have gender-friendly constitution, but they observe this in breach. So Section 78, let me speak to Section 78 of the Uganda Constitution. My experience going there in 2016 to observe election under the auspices of ESA in South Africa was that they have reserved seats for women across all the districts in Uganda. Aside from that, they now still reserve 10 seats for their military and defense agency. Out of these 10 seats, 2 must be further reserved for women. They reserve 5 seats for youth, 1 out of which must be occupied by woman. They reserve 5 seats for the labor unions, 1 out of which must be also a woman. They reserve 5 seats for PWD, persons with disability, 1 of which must also be occupied by a woman. They reserved which other, I've talked about youth, women, I've talked about youth, persons with disability, the labor union, the military. That was how they genderized the Ugandan parliament. And we can do similar things. Look, aside from constitutional alteration, which I don't think is a rocket science, I mean, the National Assembly passed, at least with the concurrence of 24 states minimum, they were able to send 35 bills to the president for assent. He signed 16 out of 35. That is not bad, given the fact that 2018 exercise, he only signed out of 5 out of the 12 that were presented to him. So it's an incremental progress we are making with constitutional alteration. So if we have an Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu coming in on May 29, and we are able to engage him either directly or through his wife, who is an outgoing senator of the Federal Republic, we can actually use Mrs. Remi Tinubu as an entry point. Because being an outgoing senator, she definitely will have allies within the party. And an husband who was also a former senator, also a former governor, that's the getting price 1 for the price of 2, 2 for the price of 1. But aside from constitutional alteration, we also need to enforce this Federal High Court decision. I believe Nigerian women has a very strong case, even if it goes on appeal. Although there is a school of thought that says the federal government appealed out of time, that the period that should have appealed the decision, it did not appeal it, and therefore their appeal is dead on arrival. But I don't really know what the status of that appeal is. But even if there is an appeal, and we are able to mobilize resources, legal luminaries to argue the case of Nigerian women, even up to Supreme Court, I believe Supreme Court of Nigeria can give favorable decision to Nigerian women about Section 42 and the fact that there is discrimination against Nigerian women. You cannot constitute cabinet of 43 members and you have only 7, and out of these 7, 4 are Minister of State, only 3 are substantive minister. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and maybe which other ministry do we have a substantive minister there? So others are just benchwarmers, just Minister of State. That is not good enough. The Section 42 talks about non-discrimination. So if the Nigerian government sign on to the CEDAW, even though it has not been domesticated way back in time, they signed on to Beijing. They were part of the Beijing Conference of 1985 and even Beijing Plus, and they signed on to all the protocols and conventions. And now we have the National Gender Policy, which has also been further revised. why then will the federal government and the state government observe the national gender policy in breach? Why is Section 42 of the Nigerian Constitution being observed in breach? So I believe very strongly that we have an inroad to get the federal and state government to do the right thing, at least for our appointive position, by going through the court processes. And the good news is that we have won at the federal court level. On appeal, if we have very good team of lawyers, we can win at the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, even if it gets there. But beyond and above that, we also need to look, Esther, we also need to look in the direction of the party leadership. Look, political parties are constituted from ward to national level. How many women do we have at the ward level of political parties who are officials of the party? How many do we have at the local government offices? How many do we have at the state offices? How many do we have at the national women, the NWC, that is National Women, National Working Committee of the party, or National Executive Committee of the party? Until when we are able to have sufficient and significant number of women contesting for party position and winning and dominating from ward to local government to state level and then the national, things might not even change in terms of nomination. Just imagine, when they said they are doing indirect primaries, Esther, when the party said they are doing indirect primaries, many of the ward delegates and local government delegates are actually members of the party. Party leadership at those levels, they become automatic delegates. So if we can have significant number of women not only registering to be members of political party, because as we speak, this 2023, we do not have provision for independent candidacy. So we still have to encourage more women to join political parties for the sake of contesting election in the party structures first. Let us have women that will dominate the political party structures from ward to local government to state level to federal level, and thereafter we will see significant improvement in the number of women that will be pushed forward for general elections, and you will start to see significant improvement in the number of women who will win elections. That is also an alternate route that I've talked about three things now. The legal route, pursuing our case on appeal from the federal courts to Court of Appeal to possibly to Supreme Court, assembling good team of lawyers, very sound, knowledgeable lawyers on human rights issues who can help us pursue that case, and hoping that we'll win. If we win, we will have significant improvement in the number of nomination, at least at the state and federal level.
All right.
The constitution, one of the constitutional alterations that President Buhari signed on to on March 17 is that cabinet has to be constituted at the state and federal level within 60 days of inauguration. So just imagine if we are able to get 35% nominees of President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's presidency into office within by June, July of 2023. That would be a significant achievement, because there are two ways we are looking at this issue of genderizing governance. One is through elective offices, and the other is through appointive positions. So we have lost out, and when I say we, I mean Nigerian women and gender champions like me have lost out at the level of elective. Even when supplementary elections of this weekend are concluded, I'm just very optimistic. I don't know whether Charity has the figures, but I'm just hoping that we could have the first women elected governor in Adamawa State. But it's a far-flung. It's a near, from what the statistics I have, it's almost a near impossibility. But I'm still hoping that we could turn the tables. For the information of those who are listening to us, Kenya in 2022 general elections has been able to produce 6 female governors. 6 female governors, and you can quote me on that. From 3 They had 3 female governors elected in 2017. 5 years after, they've been able to double that. They have 6 female elected governors. Nigeria today has not 63 years into our independence. Nigeria has not been able to produce 1 female elected governors. I had my sister Charity talking about 6 female deputy governors. That's heartwarming. We hope we will have even 36 deputy governors. But it's not enough. Let's be in the driver's seat. Let's have the first, second, third, or 3, 4, 5 women governors at every election.
All right, thank you so much.
And the only way to do that is through the route of political parties. Whether we like them or not, whether we like the party leadership or not, they are necessary evils. They are the gatekeepers. And unless we have female representation, female party officials at the ward level, at the local government level, at the state level, at the federal level, the issue of nomination will continue to be in favor of the men who has the resources. It's very shameful that even a party like APM that has the sole female presidential candidate in 2023 decided on the eve of election to endorse PDP candidate 4 days to election, thereby leaving the woman in the lurch. Even though we know the chance of the woman winning election was far-flung, but even the party sold out despite giving her the ticket. And we saw in the lead-up to that election, 2 female aspirants contesting and claiming to be the rightful candidate of the party. But let's leave all of that. We cannot continue to cry over spilled milk. I've analyzed and I've provided what I think that we can pursue. One, let's fill up local government, state and federal, national levels of political party structures. All 2, let's pursue our case at the court, to Court of Appeal and Supreme Court. If truly the Minister of Justice have filed an appeal, and there is a date for hearing of that appeal. Let's have very senior lawyers, legal luminaries who are well grounded in human rights issues. Let's have them join Mrs. Femi Falana, in fighting that appeal up to Supreme Court.
All right, thank you so much, Jide.
Engaging the president-elect and governors, 28 governors-elect, through their spouses or directly engaging them to ensure that in the 60 days they have to constitute their cabinet, they are also advanced, they are mindful of the 35% gender policy, and we are able to give them a list of possible nominees from which they can choose to give that, to give effect to that 35% national gender policy.
All right. Thank you so much, Jide, for that. Yes, coming to you now, Charity. Now, the court ruling in 2022 ruled in favor of Nigerian women having to mandate that women be given 35% of appointed position. Now, how do we get the president-elect, when inaugurated, to actually give this 35% to women? Because they're credible women, they're women who have the capacity, who have all that it takes to lead in these different positions. How do we go about this?
We have an emerging government, which is a low-hanging fruit for us. We cannot judge a government that has not come in when it hasn't assumed office. So what I think we can do is that since there's a judgment, I think we need to advocate for the implementation of the national gender policy. It has been reviewed, and it gives women even 50% and 35% in the list across board. So I think that based on the election promises of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his campaign body language through that lady, Dr. Betta Idu, who is a professional woman and was campaigning for him, I saw a body language tilted towards inclusive and responsive governance towards women. So we can based on that gender policy, the court ruling, and whatever strategies we have, to get his body language to tilt towards appointive position for women. We also have a legislation which has been pending, which is the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill. For the sake of there has been some kickback from the men in the terms of equal opportunity, that it could look like reverse discrimination. We have said equity opportunity bill, which gives special measures to women. That's for elective position. Now we are not in the level of elections anymore. Even if there are redresses or supplementary elections, just like Jide said in Adamawa State, and that we are hoping to have a female governor, which may not come because she is disadvantaged at this point with over 31,000 votes. But still, we do not say it can't happen, but it may not fly. So what we have now is appointive positions, and based on the president-elect's campaign promises, he has promised, which I heard, that he would give appointment to women in his cabinet over 35%, and you will have them across board, not just ministers and commissioners, but we have heads of departments, heads of agencies, reflective of women. So we are hoping that he will have that political will, because all this, we cannot push it on them, but if there is a political will followed by advocacy from women groups speaking to it, the early bird catches the worm. Groups begin to speak. We begin to lend our voices to the need to have more women in cabinet, since we have lost it with elective positions. I believe that we will be given a listening ear, and if we can have, we are signatories to so many instruments, the CEDAW and what have you. Maputo Protocol, we are signatories to many international laws that speak to women inclusion. If there can be some form of implementation, we already have the gender policy, we can take them through this gender policy, very, very friendly towards women. We can take them through the Gender and Equal Opportunities Law that gives at least 35%.
Hello, Charity.
Space for women. Okay. It is yet to be assented. It has been given you. I said at least percent across board. So we do not want just symbolic heads, symbolic representation, but we want it across all boards, especially in sectors that directly concern women, like the health sector. Women face intersection of issues from their puberty, from their menstruation, that table to speak to issues that concern women. And so there is need, when we give them strong reasons that we cannot achieve sustainable development goals when women are excluded. We cannot have rich governance, inclusive governance, or responsive governance when women, more than half of the population, is left out. Then there is no governance for women. If we can actually advocate and bring in strong reasons through the Constitution, through the laws, through the pending laws, and through the judgments that have refused to be implemented, I believe that we may have a listening ear with an emerging government. We cannot start judging this government with the outgoing. An emerging government comes with a lot of opportunities. Why don't we look for the low-hanging fruits where we can bring our issues to the fore, so that it can have a listening ear from the onset? That is my take.
All right. Thank you so much, Charity. 16 minutes to 6 on your Women Radio, WFM 91.7. In case you're just joining us, this is the Woman Agenda, and on the Woman Agenda, we get to talk about the need to include more women in appointive positions ahead of May 29, as the incoming administration will be getting into office. My name is Esther Alaribe. You can send us your comment on 070-317-56537, or you can leave your comments in the comment section on Twitter. We're live on Twitter, WFM917. My panelists today, I'm speaking to Brenda Anugwam, lawyer and gender expert, Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, and Charity Anaja, gender and governance expert. So, Brenda, I'm coming to you with this one. recall when Jide was speaking, talking about having to lobby and also use the influence of the wife of the president-elect, that Senator Remi Tinubu, to lobby for this. Yes, I know there's so many women groups, different civil society organizations having to have these conversations on the need to include more women. How do we actually see that we achieve this? Because it's not just enough we get to talk. I mean, if we look at it, today is April 12th. May 29 is just around the corner. So much conversations are going on behind doors. Negotiations are being made. So if we don't act fast, just when will it happen?
Thank you again, Esther. Yes, so women have been doing what we've been doing for years. We've been pushing the issues. We've been using advocacy. We have been doing consultations with representatives. So we cannot stop now. We still have to continue advocacy, consultation, sensitization. Sensitization is very important because we have a patriarchal system in Nigeria where even not just men, even women believe that they are inferior just because of the way that they have been raised. So a lot of sensitization is needed so that women can start seeing themselves as persons who can contribute to the society. And I mean, I'm going to give you a quote by an economist in IMF Africa, Monique Newark. She said, closing gender gaps and promoting gender equality is smart economics, which means not having women, excluding women, half of the population, is actually hurting the development of Nigeria. And I mean, we cannot overemphasize it enough that if you are running a race and then all of you have two legs, all of a sudden you start hopping on one leg, you can never win. Those that have two legs will win. So the question is, why do we keep excluding half of the population? Some scholars have argued that it could be the masculine fear, what they call the masculine fear, meaning the fear of being replaced. If women are given equal opportunity as the men feel or have the fear that they could be replaced if that is done. So they'd rather have us hop on one leg, become underdeveloped, just so that they regain control or continue to hold control. Now, that is not smart economics. That is detrimental to development of any form. So we definitely have to continue sensitization of not just the men, the women as well, so that we stop believing that we are inferior. We stop believing that women belong only in the kitchen and maybe home. Those are, of course, very great places to belong to, but that is not all we are. We are much more than that, and we can contribute to the economy. If we look at India, when India moved away from being the poverty capital of the world and Nigeria took over, it was the informal economy. Informal economy in India is controlled by women. So women build economies. We are already more than 77 trillion naira neck deep in debt. So if we don't build our economy, the country is going to collapse. So we need the other 50%. We cannot exclude them because of some masculine fear or for any other reason. So sensitization still has to continue. Consultation, well, we still have to consult with our members, representatives at the National Assembly, because they are the lawmakers, so that the constitutional alteration that we want done is pushed, and then we can have some of the legislations that will help more women in, and of course, advocacy. We definitely have to continue advocacy.
All right. Thank you so much, Brenda, for your thoughts there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes. This conversation has been a very interesting one, looking at the fact that our three panelists had different sides to it, each person bringing to the table their own opinion as to how this can be achieved for women. Now, I'll be taking the final words of our panelists. Jide, I'm coming to you now. Brenda has been able to touch on the cost of excluding women in governance. Excluding 50% of the population in governance, it means that we have so much that we're missing out on if we do not include the women. Now, what would be your words to the President-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as we get to talk about including women in appointive positions?
Thank you, Esther. like a man's work should be his bound. The president-elect, in the course of the 150 days of campaign across the country, promised an inclusive governance. And you cannot governance when you exclude 50% of the population, which is the women population. And whether I seem to have an implicit confidence in Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu Jagabambo, that given the fact that, when somebody says, in my part of the world, if somebody says, I will give you a dress, you look at the one that's putting on.
Okay.
If somebody, I will improve the lot of women, you ask, was he able to improve the lot of his wife? And I would say for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he did. He did. The wife was First Lady of Lagos for 8 years, and for, I think, 8 to 12 years, was a senator of the Federal Republic. If he could encourage his wife to be a senator of Lagos State for 3 consecutive times, then I think we can have some trust and confidence that it will do better than the outgoing administration. Right. However, we need coordinated effort. We need coordinated efforts to engage, because we cannot go and meet Asiwaju on individual basis, not as NWTA, not as other women group, not as, we need a coalition that will make effective demand backed by empirical studies, facts and figures, the national gender policy, and letting the relevant area of the national gender policy.
All right, thank you so much, GD. Thank you so much. One thing I'm going to take out from what you have said is the need for an effective coalition who will come together, put strategies together, and go lobby for these positions for Nigerian women. Yes, I hear you. That's one good one. I see a lot of different organizations here being represented, so hopefully they will pick up on this one. Yes, Charity, your final words this evening to the president-elect on having 35% of women in all positions.
Well, looking at the antecedents of Asiwaju, he has been a very gender-friendly person in government, and we are hoping that he would do more as the president. And we are also sending a word to all our female legislators across.
Hello, Charity. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. I can hear you now.
We are speaking to all female legislators across national and state assemblies not to forget their skirts. Your first constituency is that you are a woman. So it is good that we all for a gender well.
Okay, so Charity is having issues with her network, but I take it that also Charity would definitely advocate for this 35% for women in all positions and even more. So we hope to see all of this from the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu come May 29 when he's inaugurated into office. Thank you so much for taking our time to be a part of this conversation. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, GD. And thank you to Charity as well, and to everyone who's taken our time to be right here on the conversation. My name is Esther Laribi, and this has been the Woman Agenda on Women Radio 91.7. Yes, we'll keep having this conversation to see that we have more women in appointive positions. As we have seen, elective positions, we really do not stand a chance anymore because the elections have come and gone. But let's see what the incoming administration holds for women. Thanks to the production team of Amara Chuku and my support team, Taiwo Adeleye, and the executive producer, Tom Wokewali Shonaya. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, GD. I see you. Let's keep having these conversations in our different gatherings as we get to advocate for women at the table. Good evening.
All across the nations, all around the world, women are longing to be free. No longer in the shadows, forced to stay behind, but side by side in true equality. So sing a song for women everywhere. song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. Women can't be silent when all around the world people hurt and hungry children cry. We'll sing out loud for justice and development and hold the rights of other people high. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. Women now are working to build a better world where the love of peace can rest on every shore, where men lay down their weapons and learn to love and share, and people work to bring an end to war. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never cease. So sing a song for women everywhere. Equality, development, and peace. So sing a song for women everywhere. Let it ring around the world and never cease. So sing a song for women